All right. Good and bad in day one. You know, the good, everybody's excited to be out there. Everybody wants to get to work. Right, bad, we got a lot of things that we can work on, right? But I'll say this, I think our guys are hungry to go work on those things. Not a lot of execution errors. We got to get in football shape, right? And the only way you can get in football shape is playing football, right? So we pushed at a high level today. We got to come out and push at a high level again tomorrow. We got to be elite when it comes to our recovery and the things we do away from the field. But overall positive, we're going to keep moving in the right direction.
Dante Dale able to go today?
Yeah, Dante was able to go. Jerry Mixon's the other person who was in that. Thank God they're both healthy. They were both in an incident there. Jerry had a little laceration that they were able to stitch up, but both those guys are going to be good.
EPD said Dante had minor injuries, but
yeah, they're both good. All right.
Looks like you got a new toy, the Monarch Seeker out there for the receivers and DBs. Just what have you seen so far in terms of just how that helps you guys practice and get those guys more prepared?
You want to create game reps. You know, we haven't had it long enough to be able to tell you a ton, but at the end of the day, we want to create game reps. We can get as many reps as we can possibly get. That's something that allows us to get quick, effective reps that you know the ball is going to be in a certain location. You can execute at a high level.
Some of the teams have used that, whether it's Clemson or the Packers, have talked about like simulating opposing quarterbacks, possibly for defensive purposes.
Yeah, we're not to that point yet.
Both Nishad and Junior missed spring.
Nishad,
yes. They both missed spring. How is it like having it back there? How does that affect the offensive line competition?
I mean, it creates more competition for us for sure, and you want to be healthy up front. At some point, you're going to have some other guys that are going to be involved in the threshold for us being able to play, and both those guys are guys that are going to push to be playing a lot. Right, so having those guys out there create great competition and make our team better.
What was it about Nishad specifically that made you feel like he was going to be a good fit for the program?
Yeah, you watch his film, right? Watch his film, it stands out, and then you just talk to him as a person, what his goals are, what he wants to achieve. He comes from a great family, but ultimately he's a driven guy that has some goals in front of him, and I thought he was a good fit from a character standpoint and certainly a talent standpoint.
Yeah, Bucky's been getting a lot of the preseason hype, but what are your thoughts on the running back group as a whole?
Yeah, I think we got a great running back room, and I think we got multiple guys in that room that can push to play and a lot of snaps. I think obviously Noah has the most experience. Jordan's had a lot of experience back there as well. For us, we want to use as many guys that can play for us at a high level.
You said there were limited execution errors, but and the center's a position that's obviously going to be a new guy there. How does that look? And I guess was that part of some of the errors?
No, it was actually pretty clean. Bryce had a couple errant snaps today, but overall, from what I was able to see, our execution there was good. We've certainly put an emphasis on it.
What was the thing you saw today that you're most happy about?
Man, the football field. I'm just excited to be out here on the grass. I think every one of our players is as well.
Have you ever seen a wide receiver wear number 99 before?
Not that I can think of.
When you add the receivers that you do via transfers and that kind of experience, Dan, are the expectations maybe even at the beginning for you in terms of those things like execution and mental errors, those sorts of things, different when you're bringing in guys who are juniors, who are seniors, who are just further along, kind of been through camps before and understand what goes into it?
I don't know exactly which direction you're saying, if you're expecting to be less prepared or more prepared. Yeah, I mean, we have the expectation for anybody that can come in and be able to play. It's certainly easier for a guy that has experience, but we have some young guys too that they have the resources in front of them to execute at a high level, and if they learn it, they're going to help us.
Several of the linebackers put on quite a bit of weight this offseason. How did you see that translate?
Yeah, ultimately, I didn't think we had enough knockback tackles last year, right? We got to be a team that can have knockback tackles, not lose yards after contact. You start by doing that by getting bigger and stronger in the weight room, and I think our guys challenge themselves to do that.
Talk about your SWOT analysis. I don't know if anyone has asked you, maybe at Media Day, but does the SWOT analysis more so go on in the off season when you're preparing, or now is it fall camp? Are you using that SWOT analysis now? Like, what is that SWOT analysis?
Yeah, it's really just going through your strengths, weaknesses, right? What are the obstacles in front of you, and what are those threats, right? What are the opportunities, and what are the threats? For us, that was really an off-season study, but you could argue that we do a SWOT analysis every day after practice too. So we're going to go in here and watch this last practice, figure out what we did well, figure out what we didn't do well enough, what's going to get in the way of us doing there, what are the opportunities that we can take advantage of that we didn't. So it's kind of the same process every day. It becomes part of your process.
Now that you have your full first recruiting class officially on campus, there's probably a big range between a guy like Bo that has been at many fall camps and some guys that this is their very first fall camp. How do you kind of get everyone kind of on the same page and the same board, get those new guys up to speed, but also serve the veterans in a way that they're continuing to build off what they already know?
Yeah, your veterans have to serve as some of your coaches, right? They have to help guys. They have to help bring guys along too, and that's certainly an expectation for us that these guys that have been through this, they got to be able to pull some young guys along with them. And the guys that are running around like they're chickens with their heads cut off, they got to figure out where we're going, and that's a process. But they're doing a good job of picking it up.
The Tyshim and Evan, since they played, since they each played at nickel before and deep safety, and you trained them in multi spots. You did that in the spring. Do you want to make a point in the preseason, Dan, in terms of where they're primary going to be at? Because since it's two levels of the defense, it's the difference of, say, in a corner and a safety, or vice versa, or nickel and inside backer. Do you want to reach a point where you're dedicating them to one level or the other?
We'll always train guys at multiple positions, because at some point we'll have to play guys at multiple positions. We're gonna, on game day, we're gonna try to make sure we put guys in the best position for them to be successful and for our team to be successful. But to only train guy at one spot is, in my opinion, a chance to put yourself in a bad position.
When you talk about your team's goals, are they more practice to practice, day to day, week to week?
You got all of them, right? You've got goals that last for an entire season. You got a goal for a day. What am I going to improve on today, right? I think you just have to be really open and honest about what those look like. But, yeah, you have long-term goals, you have short-term goals, and you have to be able to assess and change them.
I know you haven't seen the film yet, but what can you say maybe was a goal for today that you saw really come to light in practice?
Play fast, right? We want to see play fast. I saw that at moments, and then I saw moments that it wasn't as good. So it's something we can continue to improve on.
Let's shift to afternoon practice because of class schedules, heat of the day. What were you looking for in that?
A lot of things that set up for us. I like having the ability to have meetings and walks in the morning before we have have an install fresh on your mind before you go into the afternoon where you're on the field. I think having the heat up is good for us, right? Early in the season where we can train in harder environments. You play games in the afternoon and at night, right? So doing that early, I think, benefits us. And then later on when we get into our class schedule, we'll transition back to morning.
What allowed Bryce Betcher to be someone who could slide down a level and play inside?
Well, he likes to hit. He's a good tackler, right? I think his best attributes are those attributes that you like to see in a linebacker, right? So it's going to be a transition process for him, but he has good speed. He gets to the ball, plays with a certain level of toughness. So having him down there, I think, helps us.
We've seen guys now move a couple of times from safety to linebacker under you. Why does that make so much sense, or is that just specific to each individual?
Well, I think you play wherever you put your guys in position where you think they can play at a high level for you. Ultimately, you can't play linebacker the way you used to in college football, right? The Mike linebacker that goes A gap to A gap, that doesn't exist anymore. You got to be able to cover tight ends, you got to be able to cover backs, you got to be able to run sideline to sideline. So that's a big piece of it.
As much as you guys had to focus on today, Dan, the last 5-6 hours have been nationally. It's been dominated by talk of realignment. Big Ten presidents reportedly meeting tonight to discuss Oregon, Washington further expansion. Just your reaction.
Yeah, I've been worried about practice today. I do not have time to read the nightly news. Maybe I'll catch up on it around midnight tonight.
Well, you talked about that part of what's next, and to sit back and watch is some of that possibly realignment.
I'm talking about what's next.